subscribe and click the bell icon to turn on notifications.
So now it's time for us to move into the design section of this course. And really, when it comes to designing reports, you're pretty much free to do whatever you want. So the way that I'm designing my report isn't necessarily how you have to do yours. It's really down to personal preference. But I'm going to show you some very quick techniques that are going to enable you to build a really nice looking report. And we're going to do this step by step. And in this first lesson, I just want to show you how to add a report title. So you can see up on the screen now exactly what we're going to recreate. And this is just a very simple report title. It just says Overview Sales Analysis Report. We have some shapes in here. We have a little icon. And if you also notice at the bottom, I've added a few different pages. So currently I'm clicked on the page labeled All, but then I have 4 other pages which are going to display the data for those specific years. So let me show you how I created this. So we're starting back at the beginning. We're on our report page. And as you can see at the bottom, I've already renamed this page to All. So what we're going to do now is just add 4 more pages. So I just need to click the plus again, and carry on clicking until I have all of the pages that I need. Now it's a simple case of right-clicking and renaming the page. So this first one will be for 2017, the next one for 2018, the next one for 2019, final one is going to be for 2020. And let's jump back to the All page. So on this page, this is where we're going to display all of the data for all of the years. So I'm going to add a report title. Now the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to change the wallpaper or the page background. So for this, just make sure that you click somewhere on the background, across to formatting, and remember it's this wallpaper section that you want to change, not page background. So currently it's set to white. Let's change this to a light grey colour. And I'm going to do exactly the same on all of these pages. So let's go through and change that colour. Right, brilliant. So let's go back to the All page and build our report heading, our report title. So for this, we're going to jump up to Insert, and we're going to be using the Elements section just here. So the first thing I'm going to do is select the Rectangle tool. By default, that shape is going to be blue, but I'm going to drag it all the way out to the edge of the report, and let's drag it up. And I think that's about the right size. Now, if I go over to my Format Shape pane, I'm going to change that fill color from blue to white. Now notice when I click away, this shape actually has an outline. So I want to remove that as well. And all I need to do here is toggle the outline off. Next, I'm going to go back to my shapes. Let's add another rectangle. And this time, I'm just going to make a square shape that kind of fits into this area up here. So you can always use those alignment guides to get this exact. And I think that is about right. Let's now change the fill color. So click on the blue shape, over to fill. I'm going to click the drop down and I'm going to make this a dark green. And what I want to do here is basically add a little icon. Now icon sets aren't included in Power BI, but you can download icons from websites like the Noun Project. You can even use PowerPoint icons. So if you open up PowerPoint and insert an icon, you can right-click and save that icon off to your local drives and then use it in your Power BI report. So I already have one saved off. So I'm going to use my Elements group again and jump across to Image. There is the image that I'm going to use. Let's select it and click Open. There is my image. Let's resize this using the handles and make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to hold down Shift as I drag this in. And then I can place that on top of this green square. Now, if you need to make very minor adjustments and you're struggling to do that using your mouse, remember you can use your arrow keys. Now I'm going to make this very slightly smaller so it fits nicely in the center. The final thing I want to do here is add some text. So for this, we're going to use the text box. Now I want two text boxes here. The first one is just going to say Overview. And I'm going to apply some formatting to this. So I'm going to keep it on this font, but I'm going to take that up to 16 points and make it bold. I'm going to click the font drop down and let's change it to this teal color. Now all I need to do is resize this text box. I'm going to drag that in. And I don't really want this white background. So again, over to the Format text box, and we're going to turn off the background and then drag that up into position. So now I want to add another text box. And again, the easiest thing to do here is simply Control-C, Control-V to make a copy of your text box. And then I can just modify the text in here. And this is going to be a bit longer. I want this to say Sales Analysis Report. Now I want to make this a little bit smaller, so let's take this down to 14, and I'm going to turn off bold as well. Once I've done that, I can then move that into position. And remember, if you want to make minor adjustments, you can just use your arrow keys. Now I'm going to select both of these text boxes and I'm going to group them together. So now they are effectively one object, which means I can move them around in one big block. Perfect. So now we have our report title. So I'm basically going to do this on all of the pages. And to differentiate the different pages, I might decide to maybe change the icon or maybe change the color of the background, square or font. Again, these decisions are really up to you. But a quick way to get this across all of the pages is to group everything together using the selection pane. So if we go to the View tab and open up the selection pane, this is going to show us all of the objects essentially that we have on this report page. And because I have them grouped, I can see here they're called Group 1. Now what I can do here is make this a bit more meaningful by giving them better names. So I'm going to call this Title. This image here is that chart icon, so I'm going to double click and call this Chart Icon. This shape just here is that green square, so let's call it Green Square so we know what we're dealing with. And then the final shape just here is the title background. So double click and I'm going to call this Title Background. And what I can also use this selection pane for is moving elements around, changing the layer order effectively, or I can use it to group everything together. So if I hold down Shift and select everything in this selection pane, it's going to select all of the elements that I have on my page. And now effectively I can right click, go to Group, group everything together, and now I can copy and paste these across the other pages in one big block. So Control-C, let's jump across to the 2017 page, Control-V to paste. And I can just do exactly the same on all of these pages. Now if I go back to 2017, I might want to change this title or maybe the colours of this green square. Now remember, if you want to go back to editing individual elements, you're going to have to ungroup everything first. So I'll just show you this first example and then I'll leave you to do the rest. So I'm going to change the text here and I'm going to change this to 2017. I'm going to leave it on Sales Analysis Report, but I am going to change the background colour of this square. Now when I clicked on this green square, it looks like I am actually clicked on it. But if I take a look in the selection pane, I can see that I'm actually clicked on the chart icon. So this is why I like to have this pane open, because sometimes what you're actually clicked on isn't what it looks like on the page. So let's select green square. Now I'm going to change the fill color from a green to, let's do a blue color. And there we go. And then I might decide that I want to change the color of the text to match that new icon. So let's do a dark blue. And the same for the subheading as well. And there we go. So I'm going to go through the rest of these off camera and just change the background color of the square and also the text. So join me back here in a few moments. And there we go. We now have some really nice looking report titles. Join me in the next lesson where we'll continue building this report. So what we're going to do next is we're going to add some navigation to our reports so the user can interact with the report easily and efficiently. And the way that we're going to add navigation is by using buttons and also bookmarks. So effectively, what I want to be able to do here is I want to add some buttons to this overview page for each of the years. So I want one button to say 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020. And when the user clicks on this button, it's going to jump them to the relevant page in this report. So a really nice way of adding interaction. Now, the way that we do this is by using bookmarks. And you might be familiar with bookmarks in an application like Word. It's kind of similar in many ways. Effectively, what we need to do here is go to all the pages that we're going to link to, for example, this 2017 page, add a bookmark, and then we can create a link from the button to the bookmark, which will effectively jump us across to that page. So the first thing we want to do here is we want to add a bookmark to each page in our report. So currently I'm clicked on All, and for this we need to go up to the View menu and into Bookmarks. And that's going to open this bookmarks pane on the right hand side. Currently we don't have any bookmarks. So let's add one. And this is going to be a bookmark on the page All. Now I'm going to rename this bookmark by double clicking and just changing it to All. Let's move across to the 2017 page. Let's add another bookmark, double click and call this one 2017. Let's move across to 2018, add a bookmark, double click, 2018. You can see where we're going with this. Let's move across to the 2019 page, add a bookmark, double click, 2019. And the final one, let's go to 2020, add a bookmark, double click, and 2020. Now, one important thing to note here about these bookmarks, if you click the three dots, notice that you have data display and current page selected. And that is because bookmarks do a lot more than just assist you with navigation. And if you have data and display selected for your bookmark, when you click on that bookmark, it can start to mess with things like filters in your report. The only thing we want to use these bookmarks for in this particular instance is navigation. So we need to make sure we go through and deselect data and display. And this is a really important step, or you're going to find that you do run into a few different problems. So let's just quickly go through and deselect data and display from all of these. And the final one here for 2020, like so. Okay, so we have our bookmarks assigned to each page. Let's go back to All. Now what I want to do is I want to add some navigation buttons. So for this, we're going to go up to Insert, into Buttons, and I'm going to choose this blank button at the bottom. And the reason why I like blank buttons is that I can just fully customize them to suit my needs. So let's go for blank. It inserts a little blank button just here. I'm going to move it down and let's resize it so it is a similar size to that green square above. So I think right there will do. Let's apply some formatting to this button. So let's add a shape fill. Let's turn this on. And the cool thing about this is that you can change the shape fill depending on the state of the button. So default state, which is what you see on the report, the fill is white. But I could choose to change the fill color when the user hovers the mouse over the button, when they press, or when it's disabled. So my default state is going to be white, but on the hover, I want the button to change to a dark grey color, and I want the text to change to white. So I want to make sure I select on hover here as well, and the font color is going to be white. So let's just test that out. If I hover over, it changes to that dark grey. I currently don't have any text in here, so let's add some. Let's click the button again, go down to text, and the text is going to say all. And once again, you can come in here and you can modify the font color, whatever you want to change. Now notice that when I hover over, because I selected white text for the hover state, it's changing to white. So a really nice little effect there, which helps users see what they're clicking on. Now I might want to add in another state here. So maybe once they've clicked on it, I want the button to change color again. So let's go back up to fill and change this to on press. And this time I want the fill to be that dark green color. And the text is going to be white. Perfect. So I think I also want this text to be a little bit bigger. And the cool thing here is that you don't have to change it for each state. If you just change it for one of them, so in this case the default state, I'm going to take this up to, let's take it up to 14. That's going to change it for the on hover state and also the on press state as well. So that's looking pretty good. Not a big fan of that thick border around the outside, so let's change that as well. Let's see what it looks like with the outline off. Not too bad, but I think I do actually want an outline. I just don't want it to be quite as thick. So we'll leave it on dark grey, but I'm going to take the outline weight down to 1. And there we go, we have a nice clickable button. So now that I have this, I want one for all of the other years as well. So again, instead of creating these buttons from scratch each time, we're just going to copy, Control-C, and paste. And then we can drag that into place underneath. All I need to do now is basically change the text label. So let's click on the button, let's go to text, and we want this one to say 2017. And we're going to repeat this process, Control-C, Control-V, drag it down. Let's go to text and change that to 2018. And we're going to do 2 more, Control-C, Control-V. Drag down, 2019, and then finally Control-C, Control-V. Let's drag that down and change the label to 2020. Perfect, those are my report buttons. So now we have these looking as we want them to look, we need to link them to the bookmarks on the various different pages. So let's click on this first one, which is essentially just going to stay on this page. So over in the format area, all the way at the bottom, we have an actions menu. So we want to add an action to this button. And this is where you go to link your button to the different pages. But remember, we're linking to a bookmark. The bookmark we're going to link this one to is on the All page. And I could add a tooltip here as well. So maybe click to jump to All. So now when I hover over this button, you're going to see that tooltip. So all of these little things really help the users. It guides them through your report navigation. Let's go to the next button. Let's turn on actions. We're going to link this to a bookmark again. And the bookmark we're going to link to is 2017. Click to jump to 2017 and hit enter. Now what I'm actually going to do here is I'm just going to copy this text so I don't have to keep typing it each time. Go to the next one, turn on actions, link it to a bookmark. We're going to link it to 2018. Control-V to paste in our tooltip and just change that to 2018. Let's do the final 2. Turn on our actions, link it to a bookmark. The bookmark this time is 2019. Add tooltip. Let's change that to 2019. And then the final one just here. Let's link it through to our bookmark, this time 2020, and our tooltip will be for 2020 and hit enter. So now it's time to test these buttons out. Now when you're clicking buttons, you have to hold down the control key to get them to work. So if I want to jump across to the 2019 page, notice at the bottom we're currently on All because we have the yellow line underneath it. If I hold down Control and click on 2019, it's going to jump me across to that page. And what I'm probably going to want to do is add these buttons to all of these pages. So again, we can group these together. So I'm going to hold down my Shift key this time and just select all of the buttons, right click, group, and now I can do Control-C, go across to 2017, and paste them in. 2018, paste. 2019, paste, and I'm just pressing Ctrl V here as I do this, and paste them in. And just test to make sure that those all work. So that is how you can add navigation buttons using bookmarks. So now it's time to start adding some visualizations to our report. And since the last lesson, I have made a couple of tiny changes to those navigation buttons. I decided I didn't actually like the border around the outside, the outline. So I've just removed the outline, and I've also moved all of the buttons a little bit further up the page so that they're directly under this icon. So now I'm ready to add in my high-level overview statistics. So these are the statistics that I want on every single page, which basically give me an overview of some of the key metrics that we're interested in. And I'm going to do this using cards. And you've seen how we can use cards in previous lessons, so this should be reasonably straightforward. Now, if I go across to my fields, I'm going to be using the measures that I've created to create a few cards, and I'm going to place them at the top here where we have Overview and Sales Analysis Report. Now these cards are going to differ on each page because on this first page I want them to show all of the years. On this page I want them to show just the information for 2017, 2018, 2019, so on and so forth. So we need to do a little bit of filtering on these other report pages. But let's deal with all first of all, because this one's going to be the most straightforward. So the metrics that I want to display at the top here are going to be the order count, the total cost, the total profit, and the total revenue. So let's add our first card visualization, and it's this one just here with the 1, 2, 3 icon. Let's click to add. Now your visualization will always resize itself to the width or the length of the longest item on your page. So for me, that is this white bar at the top. So let's resize this because we definitely don't want the card to be that big. I'm just going to drag that to there. Now this is a very simple case of dragging and dropping the measure onto the card or into this fields area. So the first thing I want to display here is the total order count, how many orders we've had. So I'm going to drag and drop that to fields, and that's going to display my order count. Now, of course, we can do some formatting here, but what I'm going to do is add all my cards first, and then we're going to format them. So that's the first card. Again, a nice quick way of adding another one is to just copy and paste, Control C, Control V, and then we can just switch out the KPI that we're using. So let's deselect order count, and this time we're going to show total revenue. Let's do exactly the same, Control C, Control V. For this card, I want to show the total cost, Control C, Control V. And for this card, I want to show the total profit. So now that we have these metrics, we can now start to format them, because currently these are way too big. I want these to go up here in this title area. So let's first start by resizing. Now you can see as I do that, I kind of lose some of the text. So we need to resize the text within this card. So let's go across to formatting. And let's expand data label. Now the data label basically refers to the number that you see here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color of this number to a green to match the theme. I can then choose how I want to display the units. So this is just a simple count. So what I might want to do here is change this to thousands, which gives me 9K, millions, billions, or trillions. So it depends how granular you want to be here. Do you want people to see the exact figure, or kind of what it's nearest to? Now I'm going to just go with none to display the entire amount. The text size, now we need to take this down a little bit because currently it is quite large. So I'm going to take this down to 24 and see what that looks like. I think possibly we could go slightly bigger with this. Yeah, I think I'm going to take that up to 30 for the time being. I may decide to change that at a later date. Let's scroll down and deal with the category. So the category is order count that you can see underneath. So this name is going to be whatever the name of the measure is. Now I'm happy to leave this colour on that grey, but again, I do want to take this down and make it a little bit smaller. So I'm going to take that down to 11 points. Now, if you want to format this category, maybe move it above the number, then there isn't actually an option in formatting to do that. So what you would need to do here, if you wanted to have a little bit more control, is turn off the category, and then you could use a text box to add your own title. Now, just for this demonstration, I'm going to turn order count on. So now I want to resize this entire thing. And again, I can see that it's still not quite fitting correctly. So I'm probably going to want to adjust my text size. So let's take this all the way down. And there we go. I think that will do for the time being. So once you have your formatting set for one of the cards, instead of having to do the same for all of the others, we can simply use our Format Painter to apply the same formatting to the other cards. So let's select the text box up to Home and select Format Painter. Now all I need to do is click on the next one, and it's going to make it look exactly the same, which is perfect. Format Painter, click, Format Painter, click. And then all I need to do is resize these boxes. So let's resize this, let's drag it up and make that a little bit smaller, like that. Let's do the same thing here for the total cost. Let's drag it up. And also drag it in, and the same one just here. Let's do that, drag it up and drag it in. And of course, remember, for some of these other numbers, if you want to change these to thousands, millions, billions, then just jump back into formatting, and underneath data label, you can change the display units here. So I could choose to display this as millions. In fact, I think that does look a little bit better. Let's go for that. Now for this one, I think I'm going to display this as thousands. And this one, I think this needs to go to millions as well. Yes, it does. So change the formatting accordingly. Now another little tip here, if you want to make sure these are spread out nice and evenly across the width of your report, what you can do is just arrange them roughly to where you want them to be. So I want this one to be more towards the end. And then you can select all of them and use your alignment tools. So if we go to Format and Align, if I choose Distribute Horizontally, it's going to space these nice and evenly across the top of your report. And then if I want to go a bit further here, I might want to add some nice little design elements. So for example, I might decide I want to add a shape, and I'm going to go for a rectangle just here. Once again, I'm going to get this big blue block. Let's make this a lot smaller. And I might decide just to have one of these separating each of those different cards. So once again, let's go across. I want to change the fill color, and let's change this to that tealy blue color again. So let's go for something like that. And I don't want an outline on this either. So let's turn the outline off. Now I'm simply going to Control-C, Control-V, and add one of these next to each of these card values. And again, you don't necessarily have to do this, but these little things do make your report look a lot nicer and a lot easier for people to read. So these cards are currently referring to all of the data. So that is the total order count across all years, and the same for rev, cost, and profit. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy these cards and also these lines. Now for this, because we have quite a few things, I'm going to use the selection pane, and I'm going to select all of the shapes just by holding down my shift key and all of those cards. And we're going to group them together. So now they're one big block. Control-C to copy. Let's go across to 2017, Control-V to paste. Let's paste it on all of these different pages, and then we can go in and we can change our filters. Perfect. So let's go back to 2017. Let's deal with the formatting changes we need to make first of all. So we're going to ungroup the elements, because I want this to match my theme. So here I have blue. So I'm going to select these bars first of all, and we want to change that fill color to a nice blue. And then we're going to go through and we're going to change the font color to blue as well. So into formatting, we want to format the data label. We want this to be blue, and also we want the category. Let's make that a slightly darker blue, like so. So once we have this, we can then copy that formatting across to the others. Now remember, if you are copying and pasting formatting, then sometimes that can change the number formatting that you've applied. And you can see that that's happening just there. So I'm going to go back through and just change the data labels to reflect the correct display units. And there we go. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to change the formatting on each of these pages. So join me back here in a couple of moments. So the final thing we want to do here is we want to apply some filters so that we're just seeing the relevant information for the page. So on this all page, we don't need to do anything here because we want to see all of the data summarized. However, if we jump across to 2017, we only want the cards to show the relevant data for the year 2017. So this is where we need to apply some filters. So let's expand out our filters pane. And I'm going to use the year filter from my dates table. So let's grab year and drag it into filters on this page. And the first thing we want to do here is change the filter type to basic filtering. And we can then go through and select the year we're interested in. So in this case, 2017. And you'll notice that all of those figures now update. Now it might be that once you change these, you want to then change the number formatting, because total revenue 0.07 million, not particularly useful. So let's go into formatting. We're going to expand data label and we're going to change the display units to thousands. And I'm going to do the same here for total profit. Let me show you that once again for 2018, and then I'll leave you to do the others yourself. So for this one, we're going to expand the filters pane. Again, we're going to drag year onto the filters on this page, change it to basic filtering, and this time we're only interested in data that relates to 2018. And once again, I'm going to change some of these. So let's change this data label to thousands, and also the total profit needs to go to thousands as well. So that is it, pretty straightforward. I'm going to go and apply this same settings to 2019 and 2020, and then I'll see you in the next lesson. So the next thing that we want to add to our report is a line chart. And line charts are great for displaying time-based data. So if you want to see how a metric has changed over time, or if you want to compare two different metrics together over years, months, weeks, then line charts are great for that. So we're going to add a line chart that shows us how many female and how many male customers we've had over the year, because this type of metric can help us make better business decisions. Maybe I'm trying to decide what type of product I want to stock next year. And if I notice that we're getting an increasing number of female customers, maybe I want to stock more products that are aimed at females. Now, the way that we do this is going to be slightly different on the all page as opposed to the different year pages. On the all page, I'm happy to see a line chart that compares female to male customers year on year. Whereas on the other pages, I want to specifically look at that year, and it's going to be more beneficial for me to see the trend over the months of that year. So let's start out with our first line chart on the all page. I'm going to go to visualizations and select line chart. Again, it's a little bit too wide, so let's make this smaller. I'm going to move it up to here and kind of position it where I want it to be. So let's do something like that for the time being. Now I need to add in my fields. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab the year field from my dates table, and I want this to run across the horizontal axis at the bottom. So let's drop it into axes. What values do I want to display on this chart? Well, I want to display female versus male customers. And I have measures for this set up already. So let's grab male customers and drop that into values. And then let's grab female customers and drop that into values as well. And you'll see as soon as I do that, it automatically adds a legend for me. So what can I see here? I can see we have a sharp drop off around 2020. And I'm going to say that that is because of the pandemic. Sales in general have been down. So now I can do a little bit of formatting on this chart. So let's jump across to formatting. And you can see here that I have some warning symbols next to the legend, the X and the Y axes. And if you see this, if you hover over, it says the visual is responsive. To return the legend font to its original size, enlarge the visual. So it's basically telling me that my visual isn't quite large enough. So as soon as I take that up a little bit more, those warning symbols disappear. Now for this, I do want to keep the legend so we know what each of those series mean. Let's go to X axes. Now, I don't think there are too many changes I want to make to the X-axes. What about the Y-axes? No, I'm fairly happy there as well. I don't want to change any of the font sizes, so let's just leave that one be. Data colors. Now, this is something I do want to change so that it matches with my theme. So we're going to have male customers are going to be the dark green, and then female customers, let's do a contrasting color. Let's do yellow. Now, data labels, what happens if I turn these on? Well, it's going to give me the values at each of the points on that line chart. Now, that looks a bit chaotic to me, so I'm going to turn that off. Let's go down to shapes, because this is where I can define if I want to show any markers. And if I turn those on, I'm going to get those markers on my line chart. And I actually quite like those because they pinpoint the years quite nicely. I can also define my marker shape, so if I don't like those circles, I could change it to something else. I can change the marker size and even the marker colour. Now I'm not going to change the colour, I'm quite happy with how those look. And one cool thing I could do is if I turn on stepped, instead of lines, it's going to show me that kind of stepped layout for those values. Now I'm going to turn that off, but just be aware that that is in there. Now, what else do I want to do in here? What about these titles? We can see currently I have male customers and female customers by year at the top just here. Now, if you want to leave that, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to turn mine off because I'm going to add a text box for this instead because I have a bit more control over the format. Now, one thing I do want to change is I do want to change this Y-axis title because it's a little bit long and it's going off of the page. So instead of trying to find this option throughout these categories, I'm simply going to use my search and type in axis title, and there we go. So now I can change the Y-axis title. So I'm going to call this male versus female customers, so that that fits on a little bit better. And there we go. I'm pretty happy with how this line chart looks. So now that we've done this one, I'm going to copy it. Let's jump across to 2017, Control V to paste it in. Now we need to make some changes just here, because remember this whole report page is filtered to show information just for the year 2017. So currently look at my line chart, it has 2017 and then we just have 2 points, so it's not really displaying correctly. So what I would rather have here is to show the trend over the months of 2017. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the year field from the axes and we're going to replace it with the month name field. And now I can see that trend over the different months. Now, one point here that's really important to note. Notice that my month names are not in order. They don't start at January, they're currently starting at March. So what we're going to do here is we are going to click on the visual, we're going to click the 3 dots and we're going to say sort ascending. We're then going to go back into those 3 dots and say sort by month name. And that's going to order those months correctly. So now that we've done that, we can go through and we can apply some formatting. And there's not a great deal that I need to change here, but I am going to change those data colors just so that they match this particular page. Our male customers are going to be a dark blue, and our female customers are going to be a lighter blue color. Let's do it one more time. Control C, jump across to 2018, Control V to paste. And simply all we need to do here is just change those data colors. So we're going to do a dark orange for our male customers and a lighter orange for our female customers. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to do exactly the same for 2019 and 2020. So in the last lesson, we added some line charts into our reports to show the count of male versus female customers. And since then, I've done a small change. If you recall, I turned off the titles for all of these charts because I wanted to add my own using a text box. And the reason why I like to do this is just because it gives me a little bit more formatting control over that title. So what I've done here is I've added my own title, and I've just added this simply using a text box and changing the background fill. So we have one for all years, and if we go across to 2017 and then 2018, you can see how they differ. So now that we have these line charts, it's time to add our next visualization. And the next one we're going to add is going to be a stacked column chart. And this stacked column chart is going to show me the total revenue per region. So over to the visualizations panel, and it is this one here that we're going to use, the 100% stacked column chart. So let's click to add. So this is fairly straightforward. We want to display the total revenue by region. So I'm going to go to my KPI measures table. There's my total revenue measure. Let's drag and drop that into values. And then what I want to do is break this down by region. So let's go down to our state region table, and I'm going to grab the region and drag that into legend. And there we go. We can now see we have Midwest, Northeast, South, and West. So really nice and simple. Now I'm going to want to do some formatting on this as always. Let's jump across to formatting. I can see here I've got those warning symbols again, so I do need to make this a little bit bigger. There we go. And the first thing I'm going to do here is turn off that title because we're going to create our own. Let's go to our data colors and change these because currently they don't really match my theme. So for Midwest, let's go for that green color. For Northeast, let's go for yellow. And then I think I'm going to do a blue color for South. And then finally an orange for West. And another thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to display the data labels on the stacked column because this makes it super clear what the breakdown of those percentages are. Now another little effect you can add to these data labels is you can choose to show a background. And you'll see if I do that, I kind of get this little shaded transparency. And you can change that color if you want to. And you can even make them less transparent by dragging that slider, and sometimes that can look quite effective. So I think I'm going to leave those on and set the transparency to 64. And the final thing I'm going to do here is just resize this so that it's a bit smaller. Now that I've resized this column has actually got a lot thinner, and I would like that to be a little bit wider. So what we can do here is go to X-axis. And if we scroll down, we have a little setting here for inner padding. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this all the way down and just make that column a little bit wider. And the final little change is I'm going to remove the region label on the legend. So for this, we want to expand legend, and I can just say title off. And I think that looks pretty good. So now I can do exactly the same. I can grab this chart, Control C, go to the next page, Control V to paste that in. And remember, we don't need to do anything to tell this chart that we only want to see the data for 2017 because we have our filters automatically applied to this page. Again, the only things I might want to do here are change the colors so that they match the theme of this page. So let's quickly do that, and then I'll leave you to do the others yourself. So let's jump into data colors. And for this one, we've kind of got a blue theme going on here. So let's do a dark blue. Let's do a lighter blue. In fact, we're going to make all of these a blue color. And there we go. It's as simple as that. So I'll leave you to copy these across to the other pages, but one thing I will show you before we leave is I'm just going to add another one of these titles. So let's go back to the All page, and I'm just going to move this down and get it out the way. I'm going to grab this text box, Control C, Control V to copy, and we're going to move this and make it a little bit smaller. We basically want to make it the same width as the chart underneath. Now I'm going to drag this chart up very slightly so that everything matches nicely. And you might want to change the color of the heading. I'm not going to in this case. So this one is showing total revenue by region, and we'll just put all in brackets. Let's apply some formatting. So we're going to change this to white. We're going to make it bold, and we're going to make that slightly bigger. Let's take that up to 11. So really straightforward to add in those text boxes. That's pretty much it. I'm going to go away and I'm going to copy this chart across to the other years and make the same customizations. The next visualization that we're going to add is a tree map chart. And what a tree map chart does is it shows some tiles, and the size of each tile is dependent on the value. So for example, maybe I want to create a tree map chart which shows the number of sales, the order count effectively, by year. So the size of each year's tile will be determined by the number of orders. So let's take a look at how we might do that. So I'm currently clicked on the All page. I'm going to go to my visualizations, and it's this one that we want just here, the tree map. Let's drag this down so we can see it a bit better. And I'm going to make this a little bit wider. So now we just need to add our fields. And the first field we need to add is basically what we want to group by. So I want to see the number of orders by year. So my group is going to be the year. So across to my dates table, let's grab year and drag that into group. Now I need to provide some values. So I want one of my measures, which is the order count, and let's drag and drop that into values. And now you can see what we get. So each tile is a different size based on the value contained within. Now I will say with my data, a lot of these values are very close together, which is why we have a lot of tiles which look like they're pretty much the same size. But if we hover over, we can see in the tooltip, for example, 2020 has 450 orders, whereas 2019 has 471. So the difference between some of these isn't large enough to make a real impact on the size of the tile. So just bear that in mind. This can work really well with certain types of data. However, with the data that we're using, it still gives a pretty good representation, and it's a really eye-catching way to display data as well. Now I think that I want this tree map to be up here at the top. So I'm going to do a little bit of rearranging. I'm going to select my chart and its title, and I think I'm going to group these together to make them a bit easier to move. So let's drag this down, and I'm going to replace it with this up here, because I think that fits into that gap quite nicely. Now you could go through and start customizing all the colors of all the different tiles. I'm not going to do that. I'm quite happy with how these look as they are. However, I am going to remove the title or turn the title off because we're going to create our own title. So once again, let's just grab one of these titles, Control C, Control V, to copy it. And I'm going to give this a different name. So this time we're showing the count of orders by year. And again, I'm just going to put all in brackets. Let's make some changes to this. So we're going to make that 11 and also bold. And we want to make sure that that font is white. Remember, you could use the format painter here to apply all of those formatting properties. So now that we have that, let's move everything nicely into place. So let's drag this one up to the top and drag our tree map up just there. And we want to make sure that it's the same size. And there we go. Now I'm going to copy this visualization across to the other pages because again we have to do something slightly different here. So much like with this line chart, if I'm looking at the 2017 page, I would rather see a breakdown of orders by month as opposed to year. So Control C, let's jump across to 2017, Control V to paste in. And you can see by default, because this whole page is filtered just to show 2017 data, that's all I'm currently getting in this tree map. So we want to replace how we're grouping this data. So instead of year, we're going to remove that. I want to do month name instead. And what I should find out getting here are all of those different months. So let's do some rearranging once again. Going to group both of these together and move this little stacked column chart out the way. Let's Control C, Control V to copy this heading and drag that across. And we want to change this title. So once again, this is going to be count of orders by month. Let's drag our tree map up and position that underneath that heading. So again, super straightforward. Now actually, come to think of it, one thing I might want to add onto here are some data labels. So I can see the actual order count on the tile as opposed to just in that tooltip. So let's go back to all. I probably should have done this first, but I forgot. So let's try that again. I'm going to click on the tree map. Let's go into formatting and I'm going to display data labels. Now let's format these a little bit. I'm going to keep them on white. I'm happy with the display units, but I think I'm going to make them a little bit bigger. So we're going to make these quite nice and big. I'm going to take them up to 17 points. So again, very straightforward. Let's do the same for 2017 whilst we're here. Let's jump into data labels. Let's turn those on. And we're going to take that text size up to 17. And remember, you can just type it in. And these data labels are particularly good if you have data that's similar to mine, where all of the values are very close together, and it's not as easy to see what that value is based on the tile size. So I'm going to go through and add this tree map to the other pages. I will leave you to do the same.
If you're not a subscriber, click down below to subscribe so you get notified about similar videos we upload. To see the full course that this video came from, click over there. And click over there to see more videos from Simon Says It.